Hello and welcome back to Diary of a Name Dropper, where we're going a little bit off script this week. A very, very important episode, a much requested episode, and something I wanted to do after I recently, a year ago, was diagnosed with ADHD. So let's get straight into it. Everything you wanted to know about ADHD, but were afraid to ask, with the most amazing Dr. Brooke. Coaching with Brooke. Welcome, Brooke. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I have Instagram to thank because for once its algorithms led me to you, and I realised I was sharing so much of your work and your advice. Your Instagram account's amazing. If you'd like to just
thank you.
Tell the listeners, you'll do it far more eloquently than me, what you do.
Sure. So I am an ADHD coach. I have been in the ADHD community working with individuals with ADHD since 2006 when I graduated with my master's from NYU in special education. And then I was a special education teacher, then a school administrator in special education. And then I moved on to coaching. So I started my company Coaching with Brooke in 2018. And now we've grown to 8 coaches, 13 staff members. It's been amazing. And our mission has been to impact 10 million individuals with ADHD, and we're already on our way.
Well, you certainly are. And I mean, Instagram has such a huge reach as well. So you probably have no idea how many people you're helping.
That's true.
You really,
it's true.
It's incredible. It astonishes me that you've been doing this for so long. I was diagnosed last year. It was kind of one of those things that people always said to me. A friend of mine was actually a researcher for Ritalin, and she said to me about 15 years ago, "Have you ever been tested for ADHD?" But it was such it's just boys, and isn't it to do with food and hyperactivity? And I thought, well, I never run around. I'm quite sloth-like, if anything, and so I was like, no, it's not me. It's not me at all. And I just had been misdiagnosed with so many things over the years. I finally last year thought, you know what, I'm going to get diagnosed. But it's only really in the last year that people in the UK are talking about it. Women are talking about it. You guys seem to be a lot ahead of the game.
Is it true? I saw somewhere that it wasn't until 2011 that adults were recognized with ADHD in the UK.
I mean, I don't know that statistic for sure, but that seems like about right. I mean, I would almost say later. It's just the conversation now. One of the things I have to say is, my mum and her generation are very much, how come everyone's got ADHD now? No one had it in my day, and it's like, well, yeah, men were allowed to grow pus in your day as well. So we like it. We like evolution. But it's kind of, they have linked ASDs with genetics, haven't they? That I think there's a link of if a parent has it, whether they're diagnosed or not. It's very 75% chance, I believe.
So it's a 75% chance that if one of your, if a kid has it, that one parent has it. But I find it interesting. So you said ASD, as in the autism spectrum disorder. Do you classify ADHD under that?
Well, I didn't realize they did, but it seems to be very much being recognized as that, which actually, the more I look into autisms, I can really see a lot of that as well. I was misdiagnosed with OCD, in therapy for OCD, but I've written everything down all my life. I've never trusted my own brain. And there's so many things like the same food and being very sort of having a lot of my things around me. But then that I identify with ADHD as well. Packing for a 2-day trip, I'll take 4 suitcases because I just think, well, I need my things around me. And so I don't know. You're the expert. I don't know. I mean, how do you classify it?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of talk about how ADHD is in the spectrum along with autism. However, in the US, we're still saying that there's ADHD and there's autism. So individuals with autism have a 50 to 70% chance of also having ADHD.
I see.
But they don't necessarily have to have ADHD. And that's what the latest research says. But, things are changing. I have heard that both of them are on different ends of the spectrum. So get back to me in a year and I might tell you something different.
I mean, that's fascinating. So, and that would explain as well why there's more of us, because if you think, the animals multiply 2 by 2, if one parent has it, there's a chance if two parents have it. I also think, certainly with my friends beginning to get diagnosed, all hitting menopause, which I think we'll probably come to, suddenly realising, oh my God, I've got ADHD, some self-diagnosing, some diagnosing, but it's certainly... I think we're drawn to each other. I've found a lot of my friends are of a similar sort
yes.
of. Maybe it's the creative thing, or the personality, or the.
You also get each other,
yes,
right? So and they're more interesting, in my opinion, individuals with ADHD. Well, my dad actually, before I was diagnosed, it's the weirdest thing. I had been working with individuals with ADHD for 14 years at this point and still did not know I had it.
Oh, you're kidding.
Correct. I had self-diagnosed in 2019 and then I got actual diagnosis in 2019. But my father, I was single at the time, and he used to say, what is it with you, dating all these guys with ADHD? And neither of us knew that I had it at the time. But those are the people that I sought out.
Yeah. And do you think we're going to discover? I mean, there's a huge backlog now. I mean, my journey is still very much going. I've been sort of initially assessed, told you're really obvious. I mean, the review was just like, this person is like textbook, impulsive. And it was kind of, yay, but oh God, life has been really hard. But I think, are we going to discover once we accept it, because obviously acceptance is the path to, recovery, but do you think we're just going to find that the world is literally made up of 50-50 or maybe even more, neurodiverse? And are neurodiverse people going to take over the world? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually, when I went to the International ADHD conference, I was listening to a researcher who actually said that in the workplace, there's 75% of people who are neurodiverse.
What? And
only 25 disclose or know that they have it. So, right, in the research that she had done. Now, this is all new research. I don't know as far as what the numbers are going to be in the future. However, I do know that ADHD is still underdiagnosed. People are just coming to understand it. Like you had said in the UK, adults with ADHD weren't recognized as having ADHD. They just thought it was a childhood disorder. And now with social media and the pandemic, where people are starting to really understand themselves more and connect with what people are saying, now they're learning that they too might have certain symptoms. I also think that people can have difficulty with attention but not have ADHD. So they, because of social media and TV and the very fast-paced world that we live in, there are attention issues, but it's not necessarily classified as ADHD.
Gotcha. I mean, it's crazy to think with that statistic of the workplace that our Prime Minister wants students now to do maths until they're 18. Which for me seems just so crazy. I was desperate to go to art school, and back when I was at school, I behaved terribly at school, but back then I had to get a maths grade to get into art school, and there was no hope of that. So it was like a barrier to my creativity, which has such detrimental results. And so the idea that in a world where we're learning that more and more people are very likely neurodiverse, to make kids do maths until they're 18 is crazy. It feels like such a huge step back.
It's not logical. It's not logical because when do you need to use calculus, pre-calculus? Yeah. I mean, and with AI and everything being on your phone, besides the basics of math, do you really need to go there where you have to take it until you're 18? To me, that's a little crazy.
It is. And it's so interesting as well that you touch on that people have attention disorders but might not necessarily have ADHD. We're talking a lot about self-diagnosis. There's a huge amount of it around at the moment. And I was told at my initial assessment that 1 in 20 people that will come that day with what they believe is ADHD, and only one will have it. The rest will have, exactly as you say, it might be menopause, or it might be, and menopause can make the hormones can really make ADHD come to the fore. And I would say that was the same with me with puberty. It came out as OCD, and heading into perimenopause was the thing that made me think I really need to get tested now, because I was being diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and it was like, I'm not. But it's really interesting that it's such a fine line between ADHD and attention.
It is very complex.
Right. So what would you say with that? And how do you feel about self-diagnosis? Is it irresponsible? Is it kind of belittling it? I mean...
No, I don't think it's irresponsible at all, especially in the UK where the wait list in NHS is 2 years, 7 years. So I think that self-diagnosis is valid. I'm all for awareness, but really it's about treating the symptoms. So if you get the diagnosis of ADHD, what can change once you get that diagnosis is that legally you can get onto medication. If you don't have a diagnosis, your doctor won't prescribe you the medication for ADHD. Now, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I tried Adderall, and I was very lucky that it worked. Stimulants and non-stimulants don't work for all individuals with ADHD. It does work for 80% of individuals with ADHD, but not all. So I think that it's not irresponsible to self-diagnose. I think that it is very hard in this day and age to get a diagnosis in the UK. So if someone is relating to the symptoms and they're treating the symptoms, who cares?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think I'd self-diagnosed for the last 10 years. It was only when it was becoming really difficult and I thought I do need medication, which was why I went down that path. You talk about the different types of medication. I'm not sure whether Adderall's available here. But what's interesting is if you go down the NHS route, which I've had to do, I had to have all the blood tests and the ECGs and the heart tests ahead of being prescribed, I'm assuming, stimulants. If you go privately, it's non-stimulant from what I've been told by friends who've done that. What?
Really?
Yeah, and I thought, is there because there's health risks, or do they know there's better results with the stimulants?
No.
I mean,
so
what's that
stimulants
about?
So it's different in the US, so I can't really speak to that, but I will tell you that the stimulants are the first line of defense. They are the most effective for ADHD and for treating ADHD. Now, there are certain people who cannot take stimulants, if they have heart conditions, if they, have negative side effects to it, so then they might consider doing a non-stimulant type of medication. But stimulants are typically the first medication class that a doctor would prescribe for ADHD.
Okay. And why it's so weird if you think our brains are going 90 million miles an hour, but then they give you, because a cup of tea, I love really strong cups of tea, make me really sleepy. It's what calms me.
I know.
So I've always
thought, isn't that funny?
That's so weird. Caffeine sedates me, same with nicotine. So Is this why the diagnosis is so important? Because ADHD, the likelihood is this stimulant creates something against your fast-moving brain, because I'm not hyperactive at all.
Yeah. So the stimulants connect the neural pathways in your brain. So if you think of an electric plug, with individuals with ADHD, the synapses are not connecting in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. When you take stimulants, it's like putting the plug into the electric socket, and now it's speaking to each other, and the synapses are connecting, creating dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake. So stimulants are 10 times more efficient than pretty much any other form of dopamine. So coffee, I think it's, I just listened to Andrew Huberman about natural ways of dopamine. Coffee definitely increases the dopamine. I think it's 2 times, and it stops after, a short period of time. And that's why we need to drink more of it. But a stimulant, it lasts for 6 hours, it lasts for 10 hours, and you don't get that necessarily that immediate like high from the stimulant. It kind of curves up and then goes back down, compared to drugs like cocaine or something like that, where you can get that high really quick and then it drops really quick as well. And that's why people who take drugs want more of it.
And ADHDers do have addictive personalities, don't they? So there's a greater chance that we fall into. I mean, my father has addictions, and I've had a tramadol addiction, and have lived through the 90s. So I would definitely say people I know that have subsequently been diagnosed as adults, we were all quite fast living, looking for that
Absolutely.
sort of. I always felt it was looking for something, that trying to. I've always felt like slightly on the outside, and actually by doing what we did in the 90s, which I don't condone, I did sometimes feel a lot more connected to things. So it's really interesting. I speak to a lot of individuals with ADHD who were self-medicating when they were undiagnosed and felt normal. Yeah.
From self-medicating. And then once they learned that they had an ADHD diagnosis and got the proper treatment, they no longer self-medicated and were able to function with their unique brain wiring.
And this is so fascinating. And you were studying this before being diagnosed.
I know, that's the crazy thing.
It's crazy.
It is really crazy. I literally was working with individuals with ADHD, and this whole time I was connecting with them. I was empathetic with them. I got them, but I didn't realize the reason why I got them so well is because I too had it, and then went into ADHD coaching specifically also before I knew that I had the diagnosis. It wasn't until 6 months after I went into ADHD coaching that I realized that I was like a lot of the adults that I was coaching.
We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
Going back to your dad, who mentioned that you dated a lot of guys with ADHD, you and I'm not suggesting these guys for one minute were manipulative, but you have posted a lot about ADHD and how we do get manipulated. I struggle with saying no. I can't set boundaries. I have such a strong sense of justice and injustice.
Sensitivity.
Oh goodness, and it's really what's the theory behind the manipulation, or is it more, do you teach how to cope with it because it's harder for us than other people? Is it a bit of both?
So I think that anyone who is neurodiverse can struggle with sensitivity and being manipulated, because we might feel, not as confident about ourselves, a little bit more insecure, comparing ourselves to neurotypicals, perhaps having failures in the past, getting fired from jobs, not remembering things, getting bullied. So all of those things move into your adult life, and it's much easier to get manipulated or gaslighted because of that lack of confidence as an individual with ADHD. And then very often you're thinking that it's you who is the problem.
Yeah.
When it's really the other person. And even individuals with ADHD can gaslight individuals with ADHD.
Yeah. I've been gaslit a lot, but my husband does say to me, I'm very good at it myself. I should say he doesn't gaslight me. I was in a very abusive marriage, coercive control, and I now understand that, you know, I was just gaslit constantly. But it has, unfortunately, sort of, I suppose, learned behaviour, I want to say, but I have to own it as well. I inadvertently gaslight, and that's not me, you know, relinquishing responsibility, but I really don't know I'm doing it, but I apparently do it. And when I then think back, I'm like, yeah, that was gaslighting, and I wish I wouldn't do that. So I have to be better, but I wonder, because we're sponges, we take on. I'm a marketing man's dream. You know, 10 minutes in a room with someone and I'm sold. You know, I'd be terrified if I ever met Trump or anything like that. You know, it's like, it's just one of these, you know, I really am. It's quite, depending, you know, where you stand politically. I stand on the left, and I do like to dip into right-wing news, because I think it's really important to know why the right are thinking like that. And I mean, my husband sort of looks over at me and is like, I think we're going to turn this off now. I can see you getting really sort of like manipulated by it. And but I do get so angry about things, far more than others. And I hate lies. I never think anyone's lying.
Yes, and that's that justice sensitivity we need to make right. We care so much about doing the right thing.
So much.
Even though we're rule breakers, we want to do what's right, and we want other people to do what's right too.
I like to think we're anarchists for the cause. I like to think that I am woke and I am proud, and I will fight to make sure that we stop woke shaming and actually go, you know what, it's okay. It's nice to be aware and have empathy, and empathy is a huge thing as well. I struggled with another reason I got tested was because my kids had both hit, you know, teenage years, lockdown, and I was really struggling to parent them because I kept feeling empathetic. Like, I'd create these rules and be like, I'd hate that. And so I'd let them get, and I realised so that was another reason. Is that a thing with parenting with ADHD?
Yeah. So, like we said, the statistics are high that if there's a child with ADHD, that one of the parents has it. So it's very often that individuals with ADHD, adults, are diagnosed after one of their children is, because the child gets diagnosed in school. And that's usually firsthand where a diagnosis happens. And then you start seeing your traits in your child, and you're like, wait a second. Yeah. So they have ADHD? I am like that too. Let me learn a little bit more about this. So it happens all the time. And that's why a lot of late diagnoses are happening, because people are more aware about ADHD in the school system, and children also are online learning about it as well.
Yeah.
And then inadvertently their parents then learn about it.
We were just sent out of class for being disruptive. I mean,
of course,
literally, like, out, you're not listening, you're talking over people.
Yep.
I don't remember anything about school except being in trouble and doing creative stuff. Like, literally, and that reflects in my grades, but nothing went in unless I was allowed to doodle. And is that where the neurodiverse comes in? Your brain has to be thinking somewhere else to absorb.
Well, sometimes we need that secondary distraction, like doodling, and that's very often doodling for visual learners, but and it could be for sensory seeking. So if we don't have enough stimulation, we'll be doing something else to get our stimulation up. So we're, stimulation seeking by doodling, by fidgeting, by getting up, moving our legs, tapping our pen, crossing our legs. We're stimming. Yes, stimming is a thing. So it's funny because there's a paradox, because sometimes we can be overstimulated, but we can also be understimulated. So when you're doodling, you're understimulated, but it's not usually taking away the focus of what you're taking in. But some teachers don't know that, and they'll say, stop doodling. But really, it's helping you focus.
Massively.
Yeah. And then if you are overstimulated by light, by sound, by touch, by smell, that's literally all you can focus on.
Yeah, that's so true. There's such a fine line between mild stimulation that really helps me sort of relax and take in the moment, or like, something that's like a car alarm in the background. I can't, everyone else can shut off to it, and it is dominating, literally dominating.
Yes, I hear everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear everything. And sometimes people will say you're eavesdropping, but no, I hear like 10 different conversations going on at the same time. I can't make out what everyone's saying, but I can focus in on one if I want to.
I mean, for years, for 48 years, I used to pretend to look like I was listening. So in meetings or just
you were masking.
To look polite, and I could feel that I either wanted to blurt something out, or I was biting my lips or rubbing my fingers. And now, because I understand it and my family understand it, they almost, if they want to tell me something, they'll follow me around while I'm doing my chores. They won't make me stand there. And it's great now. I can literally be doing a reel on Instagram and not feel... I still apologise and say, you do know I'm listening, don't you? But the minute I have to sort of just listen, not a chance.
Yes. Exactly. No, I mean, I need subtitles on everything at this point.
Yes, same. That's incredible. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that.
And the only time... This is... terrible, but the only time I listen to my own podcast is when I'm in the car doing something else. I can't just sit there and listen to myself talk.
God, no, not. I mean, I can't listen to, when Jeremy says to me, "Can you listen back to your episode of your podcast?"
No.
It's some people might think it's pure narcissism to have a podcast. It really isn't. I'm like, I can't, don't make me. I remember the conversation. It was so wonderful. I don't.
That's it. I don't need to rehear it.
But it's
I just send it to my editor, and then, very often he'll come back to me and be like, did you hear about what happened on blah, blah, blah? I'm like, nope, I was heard of it. I don't need to hear it again. He's like, well, go back and listen to it. I'm like, really?
Yeah, but I mean, they were like, oh my God, did I say that? I'm sure I remembered everything I said. And this is why I hope I'm not rushing. I'm trying to be so controlled, but I'm also so grateful that you understand ADHD. And I'm like, if I don't rush, I'm going to forget stuff, and I'm going to then have that horrible blank where there's that awkward silence, which is our worst nightmare.
Oh my gosh. I remember I used to get so anxious, and this was also before my ADHD diagnosis, when I would teach one-on-one. I was also a lifeguard and a water safety instructor. And I remember sometimes I would teach a child and their parents would be around, and I didn't know what else to say to the parent, and I would get such social anxiety about it. And my mom was like, it's okay, you don't always have to talk. I'm like, but no, it's silence.
That's so true. Oh my God, this is so wonderful. And I think probably that's why we get targeted and possibly bullied and manipulated, because it's because maybe people don't understand us, and when people don't understand something, it creates a bit of fear of the unknown. And I think it's easier then to just bully it or just laugh at it, because
absolutely, because it's an invisible disability. People are so much more. When I was in the school system, I remember that children had so much more compassion for kids with physical disabilities than children with invisible disabilities like ADHD, because you can't see it.
Yeah.
So for someone who is handicapped in a wheelchair, deaf, blind, whatever, they would be empathetic. But for someone with ADHD who would call loud, who would make an awkward noise, they would laugh.
Yeah. So then we become the class clown.
Yes. And my stepson actually, he's in a school environment that's not working for him. He's in a private school setting where they don't really understand ADHD. And he told me that he's become the comedian in the classroom. So I had to explain to him, okay, you might think you're funny and some of the kids might think you're funny, but they're not laughing necessarily with you, and you're going to get a reputation. So just be mindful of that.
I sound like, my mum's generation now, but of course it existed.
No, and thank you for being vulnerable about it. Yeah, I mean, of course it existed. You're 100% right. And it's, when you go to school, so I got my undergraduate in elementary education, and then I received my master's degree in special education. And when I was in elementary education, I took one special education class. So when I went into special education, it was light bulb moment. Now, if you're a general education teacher in a classroom by yourself and you have students with disabilities, you have students with individual education plans, accommodation plans, and you don't have that education around special education. Well, how do you know how to help this child? You're not taught it.
No. And why was it just seem, deemed as a disorder for boys for so long?
So the boys in the classroom were usually the ones who were hyperactive. And that was more visible because they would get out of their seat, they would call out, they would be impulsive, they couldn't sit still. And the girls, generally speaking, were the ones who would mask it. They would look like they're focusing, but they would be the daydreamers. So it wasn't as obvious that you could see it. So that's why it used to be like the young boy in the classroom who would get labeled as ADHD, get that diagnosis, hopefully get the support that they needed. But the women now, I meet women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who are now getting diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah. I think definitely we mentioned it, hormones, menopause. I mean, it's just brought it's brought everything that was low level just out there, the forgetfulness, the sort of I'm really distracted. I hate driving at the moment, Brooke. I'm really suffering with that because my kids are both at university and I used to drive everywhere and I just don't trust myself. It's like I will go through a light and be like, was that light red? Was that light red? And then I'm thinking about it. I miss the next light and I'm like, did I just do that again? And I just can't try. And I'm so exhausted even after a 10-minute journey.
Yes,
and
because when we drive, well, you're lucky, and you're lucky you didn't get into an accident. But you're right. That's why individuals. So separating the hormones from the hormones of menopause with ADHD for a second, because not women, even though women with menopause can appear like they have ADHD, doesn't mean that they have it, right? Because it's a temporary hormone, I guess, piece of their life, right? They weren't born like this. So it doesn't cause ADHD, but the symptoms can be similar. So when you're driving with ADHD, you see and you hear everything. There is so much stimulation going on. There's lights, there's cars, there's noises, and we can be very sensitive to light as well. So because of all of that, it makes for really bad drivers with ADHD, and we get into lots of accidents. We get very distracted. We get on our phones to get that dopamine. So yeah, it's scary.
Oh, it's like a light bulb's gone on talking to you. It's honestly, it is. It's that I can literally get bored sitting in stationary traffic for 30 seconds and then I'm looking for that distraction. And this is so fascinating, and I'm so glad you also mentioned how the menopause symptoms, can seem like ADHD.
Can mimic it.
It's nice that people kind of get an idea of what we've been going through all our lives, but at the same time, that's why it is important to get diagnosed at this age, I would say. And I know it's such a long waiting list, but if you can, which I can't, but if you can, you can do it privately. But even that, I believe, is such a long wait now. ADHD and ADD, what's the difference? Are they the same?
So ADD was stopped medically, no longer referred to in 1994. So now everything is ADHD, and it's an umbrella term. There's 3 different types. There's the inattentive type, which used to be called ADD. Then there's the hyperactive impulsive type, which used to be called ADHD. And then there's combined type, which is some of the symptoms of ADHD hyperactive impulsive and ADHD inattentive.
Okay. And so the hyperactivity, I guess, in girls, you're saying is possibly more likely to be mentally hyperactive, or is that because boys at school were the ones running around and I can remember the boys at school like that, but my brain on the other hand was...
Yes, it was a very busy brain, lots of racing thoughts, negativity, bias, constant obsessing over certain things, over anxious.
Oh my goodness, that's why I was diagnosed with OCD. Sorry to interrupt, but you're literally...
No.
I feel like a personal therapy session, and my listeners are like,
this is great.
But obsessed about, my health one week, or obsessed about, dying one week, or obsessed about my grandma one week, or obsessed about politics one week. And
it's a special interest. So whatever the interest of the week is, or I call it the interest of the day. Like right now I am hyper fixated on getting chairs for a condo that I have on the beach.
I totally
what color chairs should it be?
I'm like that with artificial plants at the moment, because I kill everything.
Yes. Yeah, no live plants here, please. Please. I actually ironically have a plant. It's dead now, but it was from Valentine's Day, I watered it, and now it's dead. So I should probably get rid of...
We forget about it, and then we hyperfixate on being gardeners, so then we kill it with love.
Exactly. Too much water, too much dryness. I can't even tell you how many nightmares I've had about not feeding the dog. I mean, I don't have a dog, but I've had lots of nightmares about that.
I have to say, I've like that. Where are the children, sort of thing. But it did actually make me a very good, slightly neurotic, which is no bad thing, mother. I was very sort of vigilant, hypervigilant. So celebrating the good things. I researched diet and nutrition like an expert. Give it an ADHD or a subject, and they will be an expert in 24 hours.
Oh, my goodness. That's why we're the jack of all trades.
Yeah, exactly. Master of none. But exactly. my daughter, I'm trying to work out where she's at, because we've both discussed this, and she won't mind me discussing this. We're trying to decide if she maybe have a mild autism, or if what we believe if ADHD is regarded as on the spectrum, and if I've got it, it's likely she's got something. So we're sort of open-minded to everything, because she's actually incredibly academic and an incredible student, but she has a photographic memory, and she's very competitive. And one year she lost at Trivial Pursuit, and she went upstairs and learnt every card, and it was like Rain Man.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, that's incredible. That's like, that to me is a gift. Like, we laugh, we laughed at sort of Rain Man's sort of silly things like that. But actually, my God, and the work she wants to go into, she's doing a master's in terrorism, and to embrace, this, autistic skill set potentially. I'm talking as a total, ignoramus here, but we're talking about it as a family, because I don't think that's regarded as neurotypical to be able to do that.
Well, ADHD is not neurotypical either, but yes, I agree. Like that whole fixation on just doing that, it's a little extreme. Yeah. I'm not a doctor, but
no, she loves it. She loves her ability to do that.
Yes, and individuals with autism, one of the distinctions between autism and ADHD is that individuals with autism do these hyperfixations because it calms them down. So they have these special interests because it literally calms their nervous system, and it calms their overstimulation.
So
now with ADHD, it's more of, it's okay. With ADHD, it's more of like the impulsivity, distractibility, the excitability of the shiny new object type thing that we get interested in, then we drop it.
That's so fascinating. So you said that a lot of people with autism have ADHD. Are you finding out that once someone's been diagnosed with ADHD, then they're which I think is what's possibly going to happen. In my case, we're going to investigate ASD, because for me, I would say I identify hugely with ADHD, and I've been told I have it, but I do those things to calm myself down. If I'm watching a film and I just can't relax, I will IMBD an actor and subsequently their entire career.
And, I do the same thing. Yes.
And
it's like, wait, where's that? That character looks so familiar. Like, how do I know them? And it's so funny. My husband will always be like, go look it up. I'm like, you go look it up. Because then I get into this rabbit hole of like, oh, is on this and this. Wait, why did I even start this? And then I missed the whole movie. You look.
It's so true. Why are you making me look? You know that's going to be the end of it for me. Oh my goodness me.
Exactly.
People who haven't been tested yet, not for want of trying, but because the NHS and the waiting lists and what have you, life, they do need help, medication possibly. What can you advise with regards to sort of alternative, diet? I know that you've got an amazing. Your social media is just so brilliant and helpful. But
thank you.
And I want everyone to know how they can find you and whether they can have meetings with you globally. Can you have
absolutely
wonderful.
We've worked in more than 17 countries worldwide.
Oh well, that's wonderful. So my listeners will be so delighted to hear that, and we'll put all the links. But I have found CBD to be a massive help, certainly with sleeping, the insomnia. I never feel tired. That's something that I miss so much. And, not feeling tired is such a, not feeling hungry as well. I don't anymore. I have to eat to stay alive because I start getting headaches.
CBD?
No. From the ADHD, I sort of, I don't get tired. I don't get hungry really. Like I'm sort of losing all that, and that's really I hate that. When people go, oh, I'm so tired. I'd love to feel tired just for once, rather than just crashing.
Sure.
And so I've been using CBD for help with relaxing and insomnia and what have you. That has been a huge help. What can you advise people to avoid? Maybe I mean I don't know if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah, so what I would say is CBD, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, CBD can help anxiety, and a lot of individuals with ADHD have anxiety. So it's helping that. Yeah. So the studies show that it helps anxiety. And then as far as individuals with ADHD, a lot of them benefit from high protein diets. And like low sugar. But the best thing to do is to speak with your doctor, find out what you're deficient in, find out what foods make your brain a little bit more foggy and which foods don't. I actually did a while back, again, before I knew I had ADHD, I did an elimination diet, and I found that when I did not have gluten and I didn't have dairy, my brain fog was gone. I didn't have IBS, and I felt so much clearer. So it's really unique to the individual. But also, I'm interviewing Dr. Daniel Amen next week, and he talks a lot about different supplements and different behavioral approaches for ADHD and healing some of the symptoms. So what I can advise people listening is to take an ADD symptoms test from his website, and then from there you can find out. He actually says there's 7 types of ADHD, and with the questionnaire, you discover which types of ADHD you have, and then he recommends different behavioral treatments and different vitamins and supplements. And any of the vitamins and supplements that he recommends, you can't like OD on or anything like that. So,
that's incredible. I think everyone is going to be heading over there. We'll put the links. If you can send me those links, Brooke, that would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, that's going to help. 7 different types.
7 different types. And I can't wait to ask him about that. So mine were anxious he has studied this before ADD changed to ADHD. So he still calls it ADD, but I was diagnosed with overfocused temporal lobe and anxious ADD, which is 100%, in my opinion, correct. I am anxious. I actually am also diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And I am overfocused to the point of where I was saying I am so focused on getting the chairs for the place just because. And even though I'm very distracted, I am also very detail oriented. So I see when things are out of place or when something, and it's to my detriment. But so what he recommended for me were a lot of, the things that you would recommend to people with ADHD, like exercise, music, structured goal setting. But for diet, he recommended high quality proteins, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. Too much protein can cause overfocus, negative thinking patterns. Also stop artificial sweeteners and MSG, and get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I need 9 hours of sleep every night.
God, I avoid MSG. That does terrible things to me. Terrible things to me. I always have to, if ever we get a takeaway, I always have to say, please, seriously, no MSG, because... So oh my God, that's fascinating. I get really bad adrenaline sweats for just no reason.
Me too.
What is that?
Did that happen to you before you went into menopause though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
So I gave birth almost 15 months ago, and I started getting adrenaline. Thank you. I started getting adrenaline sweats when I was pregnant, and even after I was pregnant, waking up with that too. So I believe that mine is based on, hormones related to the pregnancy and after. But as far as adrenaline sweats, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was told, years ago it was anxiety, but I'm not they can literally just come on, and then I have to kind of go and do something and think about something, or take a bit of CBD and try and sort of focus. Or it's manageable with my mindset, but it's really weird. It's very physical. It's like I'm soaked. Isn't that weird?
Wow. It's interesting. My husband can get soaked too all of a sudden. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't sweat.
But I definitely want to.
I don't sweat if I'm like running, or I don't have sweaty feet, or isn't that weird? I'm not a sweaty person.
That is so interesting.
I don't sweat. Like
don't know.
I'm always cold, and I don't sweat in bed or anything like that. It's literally like suddenly like a tap.
Have you ever? Yeah. Have you ever done a hormone test?
No. Do you think I should?
Why not?
We don't have, you see, the Americans, you talk about these things and you have specialists, and we don't.
You Americans
are so with it. You know, we have to go to, you know, our GP and wait and, you know, sort of come back in 6 weeks, if, you know, and it's like, I'm very lucky with my GP, I should state, actually. They are very, they do indulge me. You know, they are brilliant. I think they kind of get that I've been misdiagnosed for years, but... You know, I think the thing I really want to end on is, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and you're also really funny.
Same here.
Thank
you.
I think you're so funny.
Oh, thank you. Go on.
I'm so fascinated as well I'm invested in your chairs now, Brooke. I really am. I need to know. How many have you got to get?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. So I go to this place, you know, every now and then. It's like a beach place. And I have a very big table that is probably too big for the apartment, but I brought it from my place because it was in the garage and I wanted to use it. And
why
we
not?
have 6 chairs. Exactly. Like, why buy a new one? So we have 6 chairs there right now, and it's extremely cumbersome. So I'm like, let's get rid of the chairs. Okay, I'm ready to part with them. But now, do I need 4 chairs or 6 chairs? And if I get 6 chairs, is it going to be too much? And then do I need a new table? The predicaments here.
Oh my God. And of course, because we overthink, we're like already at the 4th stage of the problem.
Yeah,
we've even,
oh my God.
So we've talked ourselves out of it.
My husband is like, yeah, I can't talk to my husband about it anymore because he's like, I've already told you that the table's too big. So it's your choice. Do what you need to do.
Did you have separation anxiety about the table, you know, and that I get very sentimental about stuff. I'm like, I can't get rid of this disgusting mattress because my water's broke on it 20 years ago. It's like, get a grip.
Absolutely. I get very emotional about my stuff, and I'm not a hoarder, but I'm definitely a collector. I'm an emotional collector. And it's weird because my husband has very severe ADHD and he is not like that. He is an extreme minimalist, and really? I am like a clutterer. So you should see our garage. He has his car. Oh my gosh. He has his car parked in our garage. It's a 2-car garage. And then the other side of the garage is just a mess. It's like a bomb exploded. And
Brooke's side.
He tells me, yes, it's my side. Exactly. And every time he passes by it, he's like, Brooke, like, we need to do something about this. I'm like, this is my stuff. You have your side. I have my side. He goes, what if I pay you to get rid of all of the stuff for whatever it's worth? I'm like, no.
Because, and the thing, you know, fashion, it comes around, so I can never get rid of clothes. I mean, the idea of...
Well, my problem is I keep it around for so long, and then I get rid of it, and then, like, literally a month later, it's in style again, that's why and I kick myself.
I've learned the hard way. This is why I now
just need a bigger closet.
Yeah. Well, if my kids have gone to university, they're like... You've literally turned our bedrooms into wardrobes. What have you done?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
great.
I had my own condo with like 6 closets. It was fantastic. And now I'm in a house with 3 children and my husband, and I'm limited to 1 closet. And we have a closet downstairs in his now office. And now he started taking things out of the closet. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
This is why you have your condo. This is why you have your condo with your toilet. You could you could just go and put
whatever I want.
Yeah. Oh God, it'd be wonderful. It'd just be eclectic. I mean, people do say that. I mean, I noticed in my assessment, they stated that I was dressed, you know, I wasn't disheveled. And, you know, I had good height, because there was like that in there, like good hygiene and stuff like that. But they said her style was eclectic.
Hey, whatever works, right?
I'll take that.
Whatever.
But But we are.
To each their own.
Yes. And there's so many celebrities coming out with it now, which is great.
Oh my gosh, yes. Simon Sinek and Will Smith and Simone Biles and Paris Hilton.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're creative people and a lot of and very misunderstood people, I imagine, who must have been tormented by the injustices that they read about themselves.
Absolutely.
Oh, it must be torture. Aren't we lucky we're not famous?
I am so lucky. Yes, absolutely.
Hate it.
One time I went to, really quick, I know we have to wrap up, but I went to Colombia with an ex-boyfriend of mine, and it was my first time, and he's Colombian, so he brought a bodyguard to walk around with us. And I hated it. I mean, the bodyguard was great. He was a nice guy. But having someone in my shadow all the time where you can't really have your privacy, I do not know how celebrities do it and how presidents do it.
And I do such weird things, which I don't realize are weird. But obviously,
yeah,
if I got Pat,
I don't want other people knowing my little quirks.
Yeah, like how many times I have to check my car door to definitely make sure it's not left open. And
or the microwave.
Oh, plug sockets, front doors, you name it. I mean, I've broken front door handles like windsurfing off them to check they're locked. So
my husband's like that.
It's a process and a ritual, and God. So yeah, there's a lot of, because our lives are so out of control in so many aspects, the bits we have control over, I'm incredibly controlling over. Like the laundry.
Hey, listen. Yeah, I mean, ADHD is complex. I mean, you may very well have OCD too with your ADHD, and there's nothing wrong with it. Or you could just have obsessive. Yeah. Bring it on. Exactly. But yeah, very often we have comorbid. It's a very strange name. It sounds like death, but comorbid conditions, which means that you have something else. So I also have a learning disability. I also have anxiety.
We're complex.
We are complex.
We're wonderful, and we're going to take over the world. And, I think we should really celebrate.
We already are.
We are. Exactly, we are.
Albert Einstein, Bill Gates.
Well, I was going to say.
Steve Jobs.
They are.
Thomas Edison. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And artists must have been, all these crazy artists. Of course they were. There has to be, and all these writers'
All of
blocks.
my artist friends have ADHD, like well-known artists. Yes.
I love it. It's the crowd I want to be in. I just wish I'd had all these friends sooner because I felt so on the outside. And I remember the guy who assessed me said, you do realise that diagnosis is part of the cure. And just understanding it and going, okay, this isn't me being weird. I can't help it. And thinking there are other people like me. And I wish that's my hope, that children never have to go through 48 years without finding their people.
Absolutely. And that's why I coach students too, because if you wait until adulthood, of course you can overcome so many obstacles. But that complex trauma and memory of shame and rejection, that all stays with you. So starting young, where you can learn the tools to develop and harness your ADHD and be aware younger, I mean, it's so powerful.
And to have people in your life that understand it, to understand the ADHD paralysis, which, oh my God, for years, my mum or my ex-husband was like, God, you're so lazy. And it was just, I could not do anything. Like, I was just so overwhelmed. And
you couldn't initiate, which is
nothing.
A huge part of ADHD, getting started.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you break out of that? That's a whole other episode.
So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different things. So one thing is literally just having an accountability partner, whether it be your spouse or, a coach or a friend, to say, okay, remember that thing? Let's get started. You got to be motivated very often. Intrinsically, that's the best way to understand why you're doing it. Break it down really small. So sometimes we overthink things and think it's way bigger than it needs to be. So if we can just think of the very first thing to do to get started on that task, And then usually that then breaks us free, and then we end up doing more. It's like, I don't want to go work out. Okay, well, if I put my sneakers on, then what am I going to do?
That's very good advice. Yeah. Because we have to almost feel like we're in control. And our ADHD feels like it's someone else in control. And that's why I almost object to it.
Yes, and that's where we're the rule breakers. Like, we have to 100% be in control, and no one can tell us what we should be doing or how to do it. We have to be the ones to come up with it, and we have to really believe in it to actually do the thing.
Yes. Never ask an ADHDer for a business plan. You ruin all their fun.
Oh my gosh. I did not have a business plan when I started my business.
No.
I jumped right into it.
I love it. And just, you wing it, don't you? It like our conversations, that's what, because we have no memory.
Yes and no. Yes and no. So when I first started the business, I jumped right in and I got my feet wet and all these things. And then after a year, I'm like, okay, I need some sort of plan here. Like, what's next for me? So then I hired a business coach and I did vision.
Oh, you hired someone.
Goal set. I
good.
hired someone.
No,
because otherwise I wouldn't
need
hold myself accountable. Right.
I
hired
brilliant.
someone. I meet with him weekly, and we literally just go through my numbers just to keep track of where I'm at and how I'm pacing, if I'm pacing towards my goals. Because now that I have 8 coaches and 4 assistants, I am paying salaries and paychecks, and and we're working with. It's a huge responsibility, and we're working with hundreds of clients. So I'm responsible for all of this. The buck stops with me. So I can't just wing it at this point.
No.
However, I do get creative, which is awesome. I love being able to implement new programs and stay current and talk to people like you. I mean, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant. And I should say, I don't have a business plan, but I would say my husband acts as that person who says, right, where are we at? Accountability. That's so, I like to think I'm winging it, but he's very much there. We do need a person, be it a friend or one of your adult children. My daughter's very, very good at saying you're being time blind. Like, she's really good at understanding that. She used to scream at me, why are you always late? Now it's like, please don't be time blind. Remember that. And it's so lovely. I'm so lucky. So, yeah, if I could have a business coach and take the burden off my husband, I would.
Oh, yeah.
But for now,
I'm sure he'd be appreciative of that too.
He really would. But for now, I'm taking it easy and everything. So, but when it all kicks off, I'll have to consider that, because you're right. That the responsibility could potentially cause you to become overwhelmed, and then that can be detrimental. So it's really important that you have that preventative prop, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Honestly, I'm so glad to have spoken to you, Brooke, and I know that everyone is going to just absorb this. And please,
thank you, Meredith,
send me all the links, and we'll put them in the show notes.
I will send you the links for the Dr. Amen thing, and you mentioned my social media. I mean, literally everything is Coaching with Brooke.
Yes, so your Instagram is at Coaching with Brooke with an E, and you can find Brooke everywhere. Oh, Brooke, thank you so much. And you're in Florida, right?
I am. So I moved here 5.5 years ago before it became trendy.
Well, I'm sure you're going off to, I want to think, something fabulous like swimming or going to the beach, but no doubt you're off to coach and be amazing and encourage and support.
I am off to do marketing with my husband.
Oh, and not think about chairs, Brooke.
Not think about chairs. Right, an idle mind is a dangerous mind.
Exactly, but you need to keep me updated in the chairs. I'm so invested in the chairs. Thank you so much. Will you ping me everything on email you want us to put in show notes?
Absolutely. Thank you, Meredith.
Your time, thank you. I've taken so much of it, and you've been just a light bulb moment. Thank you. I am so grateful. I feel very emotional, so I'll go before I make an idiot of myself.
Oh, stop it.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope I asked all the questions and you got the answers you've been looking for. Don't forget, you can always DM me, but in the interim, subscribe, like, tell your friends. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Brooke. Thank you to you guys for listening and making this podcast happen. And thank you to my incredible producer-editor, Your Voice Here. See you next time.